Hello, HeelCast Nation. This is Mike Larkin, running solo for you, and I'm here to talk about the debut of Impact on Spike TV. Your adrenaline rush starts now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Larkin, one half of the Steve and Mike Show. SteveandMikeShow.com is up and running. That's www.steveandmikeshow.com, where you can hear such shows as The Steve and Mike Show, The Golden Age of Everything, The Stevie Nicks Experience, On the Mic with Mike, the Pop Culture History Podcast, and a lot more. You can hear me on the HeelCast, Impact Bodega Podcast, and just on Max Wrestling Podcast and a lot of great wrestling podcasts. I'm back today with another audio. We're coming to the October 1st, 2005 episode of Impact Wrestling. Its 13-year anniversary. Now, why is this episode so significant? And what does it symbolize for the company? I'll tell you what it does. It symbolizes and it signifies Impact's debut on Spike TV. This was the first ever episode, October 1st, 2005, that was on Spike TV. The show was originally on Fox Sports Net, which I remember, because I'll be honest with you guys, around this time period, like I said, as far as wrestling, when I was a kid, my dad, I wanted to watch wrestling with him so bad around the Attitude Era going towards 2001, which was towards the end of WCW and ECW. I wanted to watch wrestling with him so bad, but he wouldn't let me. A family friend of ours, his name was Carl, shout out to Carl, he got me into it in 2002, and the first show I ever saw was a Monday Night Raw at the East Rutherford, New Jersey, at the Continental Airlines Arena at the time. I was there the night when Eric Bischoff became the Raw General Manager, and my first ever live event for WWE was SummerSlam 2002, which was a great pay-per-view. But I digress. So I started watching WWE in 2002. Impact Wrestling I started watching in 2004 because I was such a big Jeff Hardy fan, and Jeff Hardy had been released from the WWE a year prior in 2003. Jeff Hardy was coming off the storyline where he teamed with HBK for a little bit, coming off a very short heel turn. He was paired with Trish Stratus very briefly, and then he just got released. He did a spot in Ring of Honor as Will-O-the-Wisp. Then he came into TNA at the time, and that was the first show I ever saw was TNA's second anniversary show, because my dad's like, Jeff Hardy's going to be on this. And I'm like, oh, wow, really? I got to check this out. And it was his match versus AJ Styles for the X Division Championship. And that whole event was my first showing of TNA. And then I had to watch Impact, which was on 3 p.m. on Fridays on Fox Sports Net, and then 4 p.m. And then it was on there until, I believe, let me check here. Was it May 2005? Yes, May 2005. So I do remember, and no, I know in like some markets there was some markets it was on, they on their TVs. Be honest, I remember the days where I just watched it for a couple months when it was on like their website. So before Ring of Honor, because around this particular time period, Ring of Honor had the Video Wire. They did some stuff with the Video Wire. ROH will have their shows on their wrestling website now, but I remember watching Impact on the Impact Wrestling website at the time, TNA Wrestling.com. And then, they got the deal. News broke that they got the deal on Spike TV, which was October 1st, 2005. It was originally 1 hour. I believe it was on from 10 to 11 p.m. Somebody could correct me on that, or 9 to 10 p.m. And then it went to 9 to 11 p.m. Yeah, I just distinctly remember it used to be an hour. Then it became 2 hours. So it was either on 9 to 10 or 10 to 11 or 11 p.m. around those particular time periods. And I think they would show like a replay as well, but I would distinctly remember them being on Saturday nights. And then they went to Thursdays for an hour, and then they got the 2 hours. But I remember watching this first episode around this particular time period. I'll do a little compare and contrast here. And I know I'm all over the place, but this was an exciting time for me. I was 13 years old, just starting my teenage years, and I was watching WWE for 3 years already. I was watching Impact for a year already, TNA at the time, and I was watching Ring of Honor. My first Ring of Honor show was actually in September of 2005, where Bryan Danielson, aka Daniel Bryan, defeated James Gibson, better known as Jamie Noble, for the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship, and the feuds with Low Ki and Jay Lethal and Homicide and Colt Cabana at that period of time. It was a great time for wrestling, man. It really, really was. To compare and contrast with WWE, now this show was going towards Bound for Glory on the TNA side of things. TNA's Bound for Glory, which was held on October 23rd, 2005, which featured in the pre-show. It was Sanjay Dutt beating Alex Shelley, Austin Aries, and Roderick Strong in a fatal four-way match. Samoa Joe defeating Jushin Thunder Liger. The Diamonds in the Rough, who were David Young, Elix Skipper, and Simon Diamond, defeating Apollo, Shark Boy, and Sonny Siaki. Monty Brown defeated Lance Hoyt, who was just coming off a great match with Abyss, and he was getting a little bit of a singles push. Team Canada, who was A1, Bobby Roode, and Eric Young, defeated the Three Live Crew, BG James, Conan, and Ron the Truth Killings. Petey Williams defeated Chris Sabin and Matt Bentley in an Ultimate X match to determine the number one contender to the TNA X Division Championship. America's Most Wanted would defeat the Naturals for the NWA World Tag Team Championships. Rhino defeated Abyss, Jeff Hardy, and Sabu in an amazing Monsters Ball match. Where Jeff Hardy did the Swanton to Abyss off the set, really, off the top of the Impact where the Tron was, and y'all know what I'm talking about, the set, and he did the Swanton, and James Mitchell's face was priceless. AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels had the second Iron Man match where AJ Styles would beat him 1-0 for the TNA X Division Championship. What's funny about this is, because we're going to talk about the episode in a second, the original main event for this card was Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash with Tito Ortiz as the special guest referee for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I remember Kevin Nash was not able to participate and compete because of a medical emergency, so they did a 10-man gauntlet match to replace Kevin Nash in the main event, which was won by Rhino, who beat Abyss, AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Kip James, Billy Gunn, Lance Hoyt, Monty Brown, Ron Killing, Sabu, and Samoa Joe. And then that would lead to Rhino beating Jeff Jarrett with Gail Kim in his corner for the NWA World Championship with Tito Ortiz as a special guest referee, and Rhino winning the championship. And I think a mere 2-3 weeks later, Jeff Jarrett would win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship back. And then WWE around this time, the two big feuds were on Raw. It was Jeff Jarrett, John Cena, and Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship, coming off Unforgiven 2005, and then they would have their rematch at Survivor Series 2005. And on the SmackDown side of things, it was Batista and Eddie Guerrero, and this would be the last we would see of Eddie Guerrero at No Mercy, because just a month later he would pass, and God rest his soul. What a legacy and what a legend and Hall of Famer that Eddie Guerrero is. Him and his family, what they've done for professional wrestling. I will say this. Around this period of time, since I went through Bound for Glory, this is what we had on the WWE side of things. The Heat match before No Mercy was Paul Burchill, before he was the Pirate, and William Regal defeated Brian Kendrick and Paul London. Christy Hemme and the Legion of Doom, who were Animal and Heidenreich, defeated Eminem, Joey Mercury, Johnny Nitro, and Melina. Bobby Lashley, in his WWE pay-per-view debut, defeated Simon Dean. Chris Benoit defeated Booker T, Christian, and Orlando Jordan in a fatal four-way matchup to retain the United States Championship. Mr. Kennedy, in his WWE pay-per-view debut, defeated Hardcore Holly. JBL with Jillian Hall in his corner. This was the first time we saw Jillian Hall with JBL, defeated Rey Mysterio. Randy Orton and Cowboy Bob Orton defeated The Undertaker in the handicap casket match where the Ortons would light the casket up on fire. Juventud Guerrera, who was with Psychosis and Super Crazy, the start of the Mexicools, defeated Nunzio with Vito, who just came into the company. Nunzio won the Cruiserweight Championship at Velocity at the time. He beat Paul London. Juventud would beat Nunzio for the Cruiserweight Championship, and Batista defeated Eddie Guerrero to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. So that was what things were like on the WWE side of things. And like I said, this was an exciting time for wrestling with both respective companies. Personally, like I said, this is where I really started getting into around this particular time, which is known as the Ruthless Aggression era. WWE, I had started watching TNA, which we're going to get into the episode for over a year. This is really its hotbed right here because 2004, Jeff Hardy came in, and a lot of great people came in. There was a debut on this episode that we're going to get into. So all around, it was just a great time for wrestling, and it really just solidified just the great competitors and what a roster that they had at the time, and it would just grow and grow and grow. And speaking of Kurt Angle, a year later we would see him in TNA in 2006 where he would feud with Samoa Joe, and they would have their stellar and legendary matchups there. So yeah, that was TNA and WWE in a nutshell around that time, and I just had to include Ring of Honor because, alright, I'll give you guys a little thing. Now, when TNA used to run at the theater at Westbury, my mom used to work in the box office, so yours truly had no problem going to see TNA and not having to pay because I got the hookup, and I could say that proudly. I got the hookup, and there was a lot of great times at the Westbury Music Fair. So I remember seeing TNA there live. To elaborate on this, when TNA had Kurt Angle come in a year later, and you got to see the greats like that would come with Kurt Angle and all the people that would come in. I know Hulk Hogan came in later. Team 3D around this time. Rhino, Christian Cage. The list goes on and on. I could be here all day with this, but I digress, and I'll elaborate on the story that I'm going to tell you guys. So I had a choice, and God rest their souls. My Aunt Rose and my grandmother, again, God rest their souls. I had the option: do I want to go with my dad to see this wrestling show, Ring of Honor, in Lake Grove, New York, at Sports Plus? Do I want to see wrestling at Sports Plus, or do I want to go see Engelbert Humperdinck with my mom, who took my grandmother and my Aunt Rose at the time to go see Engelbert Humperdinck? So it was either go see wrestling or go see Engelbert Humperdinck. And you know which option I chose. I went with wrestling, and that's where I saw Bryan Danielson defeat James Gibson for the Ring of Honor World's Heavyweight Championship. The progression with the feud between Low Ki and Jay Lethal, and the progression of the feud between Homicide and Colt Cabana. And just many great talents in Ring of Honor at that period of time. So that's the tie-in with wrestling as far as Westbury and pro wrestling, and seeing TNA there as well. So I just wanted to include that little bit of tidbit of information for you guys. Now, on to the episode, because I took some notes. We open up with Barry Scott, who we saw do the voiceover in the Open for Slammiversary and narrate it. You know that this is TNA, the new face of professional wrestling. We open up with a video package highlighting the history of TNA thus far, and highlighting and solidifying the importance of the night. You know, it was their debut on Spike TV. They highlighted AJ Styles, who's the X Division champion, Jeff Jarrett, who's the NWA World Heavyweight champion, and the Naturals, Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas, who are the tag team champions. And then Mike Tenay would come on and say this was a dawn of a new era in pro wrestling, and that the new wrestling alternative, the 60-minute adrenaline rush, starts now. Then we find out that we're going to have Rhino versus Jeff Hardy tonight, and controversy in Canada, which was Jeff Jarrett regaining the World Heavyweight Championship, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship from Raven at Border City Wrestling. Scott D'Amore's promotion, which we see a lot of now in Impact Wrestling and their Twitch shows and what have you. And that just, progressed in what we would see later on in the night. So we open up with AJ Styles, who was voted as the opening matchup against Roderick Strong. AJ Styles, a tremendous run in Impact Wrestling, TNA. Roderick Strong, he was there very shortly. Roderick Strong and Austin Aries were a great tag team in Ring of Honor. Roderick Strong is the current NXT World Tag Team Champion with Kyle O'Reilly as a part of the Undisputed Era. He's doing his thing over there in WWE. I do remember this time them bringing in Roderick Strong and Austin Aries. His first match was against Christopher Daniels with a fan online poll. And then Austin Aries would come back as Austin Starr and be with Paparazzi Productions with Alex Shelley, and their feud with Bob Backlund sticks out in my mind. But yeah, this was a great opener. These two, they went back and forth. They really highlighted Roderick Strong being the messiah of the backbreaker, which he was. We did get to see a backbreaker in there from Roderick Strong. He got some nice shots in. AJ Styles did the typical the drop down drop kick, the tope over the rope, the Muda lock, which we see early, which would later be known as the calf crusher slash a calf killer. We would see the Daniels come down, Christopher Daniels, who wants his title back, and that was to build to their matchup at Bound for Glory, Iron Man 2. AJ Styles would hit the Pele, the springboard reverse DDT, and the Styles Clash for a 1-2-3, and AJ Styles gets the victory in the first opening matchup on TNA on Spike TV. Then we see a highlight video for the alpha male Monty Brown, showcase his time in the Buffalo Bills and football and wrestling career, and we heard from legends like Mike Tenay and Larry Zbyszko and Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas, speaking of Shane Douglas, interviews the alpha male Monty Brown. He tells us that Spike TV has become Serengeti TV. He won't be stopped or denied. You are about to feel the pounce. Period. Then we go back to Raven attacking people in the backstage area with the trash can. Larry Zbyszko saying no, 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 because he's upset of the fact that he got screwed in Canada, and Raven wants answers and he's not happy. So Larry Zbyszko tells him to take care of it, and that was the interaction with that. We would see Raven and Larry Zbyszko fight in 2006, and Larry Zbyszko getting his head shaved. So that would be an ongoing feud. I do distinctly remember him bringing in people from Raven's past, like Justin Credible, PJ Polacco, Chris K, the late Chris Canyon. So, this was a fun time period with Raven and Larry Zbyszko, and what would progress and later be a feud between those two. We then saw Monty Brown versus Lex Lovett. Now, Lex Lovett, the likes of him, Buck Quartermain, who else we had there? Jarrell Clark and Mikey Batts. They were Jay Brones and Cassidy Riley, but you would see those two. Those two were a great tag team. Mikey Batts, who was the cousin of Billy Kidman, and Jarrell Clark was amazing. Lex Lovett and Buck Quartermain were there, again, just to do the JOBs and be enhancement talents. Cassidy Riley, what's actually very interesting that a lot of people forget, is that when Monty Brown debuted in the WWE on ECW on Sci-Fi in 2006, his first opponent on ECW on Sci-Fi was none other then Cassidy Riley. So there's the TNA tie-in right there. And I distinctly remember in 2006 on that god-awful ECW December to December 2006, which only had one good match on that show, and that was the Hardys versus M&M. Sylvester Terkay, who fought Kurt Angle in the Olympics, and he wrestled in Japan as Predator. He was a former 0-1 United States World Heavyweight Champion. It was him and Elijah Burke, who would later go on to be the Pope D'Angelo Gennaro on TNA. They teamed up against Nunzio and Tony Mamaluke, the FBI being accompanied by Trinity, who I've interviewed on my show. And is one of my favorite people and just all the great talent. The stuff that she did against the likes of Jacqueline and working with the guys and the moonsault off the cage. She's just an exceptional human being. But again, I digress. I distinctly remember, because Sylvester Terkay's maneuver at the time was the Muscle Buster. And now, who was very popular in TNA at the time and used the Muscle Buster, Samoa Joe. So there was a loud TNA chant at ECW December to December 2006. So that always etches and sticks in my brain. Then we get Monty Brown and Lex Lovett. Monty Brown just right hands, throws him into the corner. Lex Lovett got a couple shots, but it was just exploder suplex, fall away slam, pounce, 1, 2, 3. Monty Brown is your victor. And then Monty Brown would fight, like we mentioned, the Bound for Glory 2005 card. He would go on to beat Lance Hoyt at Bound for Glory 2005, and then he would fight Jeff Hardy at Genesis 2005 and would become the #1 contender for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And I distinctly remember, and someone can correct me on this, obviously Monty Brown would turn heel, and him and Christian Cage would fight for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and I believe that was Monty Brown's last match in Impact Wrestling. Jeff Hardy, this was the last time I believe we saw Jeff Hardy in TNA in November of 2005. That was like his last match. And then we wouldn't see Jeff Hardy resurface until August of 2006, where he went back to the WWE, and he instantly went into a feud with Johnny Nitro for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. He would be the Intercontinental Champion. They brought back the Hardys. The Hardys feuded with M&M. The Hardys were in Money in the Bank. Then they became a tag team. Then they reformed the Hardy Boys on ECW, which I was there for, where they fought the FBI. Then, they would win the tag team titles. And then, Jeff and Matt would go on their singles way. Jeff would win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Matt Hardy would win the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. Edge would beat Jeff Hardy. Jack Swagger would beat Matt Hardy. Matt and Jeff feud at WrestleMania 25. Then Matt got released in 2010. Jeff Hardy left in the summer of 2009. And the rest is history with the Hardy Boys. So that was the early inclination of Jeff Hardy in TNA at the time. So that brings us to a video package highlighting the X Division. And it showed, Christopher Daniels, Chris Sabin, Petey Williams, AJ Styles, the whole nine. And it showcased what the X Division was. Now, then we get a matchup that previews the Ultimate X match that we would see at Bound for Glory 2005 with Petey Williams, Chris Sabin, and Matt Bentley, as Petey Williams fought Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. And what was a great match. I mean, Shelley and hit a cloverleaf on Chris Sabin in there. There was a lot of amateur wrestling, a lot of back and forth printing predicaments, springboards, high octane aerial assault, the Asahi moonsault from Chris Sabin to both Shelley and Williams. Shelley and Williams worked over Sabin, and then they would accidentally bump heads, and then they would fight each other. A short-lived alliance. Brainbuster by Alex Shelley, a sit-out powerbomb from Chris Sabin, a running neck breaker from Alex Shelley to Sabin, and Alex Shelley hit a final cut on Petey Williams. And then the ending sequence would be Chris Sabin. As I turn the page, like Bob Seger, as I turn the page on my notes here, Chris Sabin would hit the cradle shock on Alex Shelley for the 1, 2, 3, and then afterwards, Petey Williams would attack Chris Sabin and hit the Canadian Destroyer, which I loved on the announce team, saying that it's one of the best moves in professional wrestling, because it was. It's a sick move. It's one of the most devastating finishers ever, and they really highlighted and showcased the Canadian Destroyer, because it's such a sick move and still is to this day. We then had Shane Douglas interviewing Larry Zbyszko. Tito Ortiz shows up to talk with Larry Zbyszko. Shane Douglas wanted to know what Larry Zbyszko's surprise was, and that's what was Tito Ortiz, and then we would find out that Tito Ortiz would be the special referee at Bound for Glory. We did a highlight video of 3 Live Crew and showcased them as a team and as a tandem thus far in TNA. And then we would find out that next week we would get 3LK, 3 Live Crew versus Team Canada. Then we would get Rhino versus Jeff Hardy. Rhino attacks Jeff out of the gate. A lot of back and forth action. He pretty much, oh my God, I'm having a brain fart. Excuse me. Mike Tenay, this is what I'm trying to say. Mike Tenay, I totally forgot about this. That they were going to be under lock and key, no food, no water, All 4 participants, Jeff Hardy, Sabu, Abyss, and Rhino for Bound for Glory. I totally forgot that was a thing, and that's where my brain fart came in, because I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember that. I'm like, okay, I guess they did. It makes sense, because, Mike Tenay was very, put the emphasis on, we're going to have them under lock and key. They're not going to have any water or food, and then we're going to turn them loose at Bound for Glory, Monsters Ball 2. So that's where I wrote down, and I'm like, I totally forgot that. But yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. That was my brain fart there. Spinning heel kicks from Hardy, the Hardiac arrest, the drop kick in the corner. Spinebuster by Rhino, works over Hardy. Rhino misses a headbutt. Hardy comes back, hits the leg drop to the nether regions. Rhino hits a belly-to-belly, misses the gore. Jeff Hardy hits the twist of fate. But before he can go up top for the Swanton, Abyss comes out, shoves Jeff off the top rope, attacks Rhino. Jeff hits the Whisper in the Wind on Abyss. Rhino and Abyss attack Hardy. They both are fighting over the steel chair that Abyss brings in the ring. Lights go out. Here comes Sabu. Throws the chair at Rhino and Abyss. Jeff Hardy takes out Abyss. Sabu hits the Arabian face buster onto Rhino. Sabu takes out Rhino. Over the top, he does the dive off the chair. Jeff Hardy takes out Abyss, and they're both standing in the ring, Jeff Hardy and Sabu, and pretty much, relinquishes Rhino and Abyss. Again, as I turn the page on my notes, AMW and NWA champion Jeff Jarrett, they showcased the video September 15, 2005 for Border City Wrestling. Raven and Jeff Jarrett are having their title match. Raven hits Jeff Jarrett with his guitar, goes for the Raven effect, DDT. Then we have the super kick by James Storm, the death sentence to Raven, and Jeff Jarrett wins back the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. Scott D'Amore comes in, loves when a plan comes together. AMW says we're going to be taking over TNA, and this was very pivotal in TNA history, because this was the heel turn of America's Most Wanted. We've never seen AMW as a heel. We've seen them great matches with Triple X and the great feuds that they've had with the Naturals as well, but we've never seen AMW as a heel tandem, and this was the start of the AMW heel turn. So Jeff Jarrett comes out, says that yes, it's the single greatest day of his life. He's the champ on Spike TV. I told you I would be the champ on Spike TV. He built TNA. All the power lies with the NWA title. He thanks AMW for what they've done for tag team wrestling, and this gets generates a lot of boos because AMW, the heel turn, and why did you turn your back on the fans? And he also thanks Scott D'Amore, who was the final piece in the puzzle and helped with the plan. Scott D'Amore comes out. He says it's so good to be back, and that Jeff, we made a deal, and he held his end of the bargain. Then they shake hands, and then they hug. Then 3 Live Crew comes out, and he says that Conan says that Jeff, this is the debut of Spike TV. You're already boring everybody, and stop acting like a bia, as he put it. Then 3 Live Crew and Team Canada brawl with AMW and Jeff Jarrett as well. There's a huge brawl, and then all of a sudden the music hits. Watch out, watch out, watch out. As I turn the page on my notes again, baby. Here comes the debut of Team 3D. Now, we would not see Team 3D in a WWE ring since the last match. I know they've mentioned in the Talk is Jericho podcast and in various shoot interviews that I believe their last match was on a house show, and Bubba Ray Dudley at the time automatically came out and said, like, yo, they were going to have us feud with M&M, but that never came to fruition because he pitched it, but never came to fruition. I also distinctly remember, like, they were upset that the Brother Ray Deadly and Brother Devon Deadly came out, that they were going to be the Deadly Brothers, so then they got switched to Team 3D. But yeah, the last time I remember seeing the Dudleys wrestle, they actually wrestled Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman at ECW One Night Stand 2005, which is infamous for the main event where Blue Meanie got busted open by JBL, and that whole scenario that happened. But yeah, that was a brutal match, and I do recall that. Yeah, and then Team 3D come out. They brawl with AMW, Jarrett, and Jeff Jarrett and Team Canada. They hit the 3D on James Storm and the 3D on Chris Harris. They go for the 3D on Jeff Jarrett, but Jeff Jarrett escapes. Out comes Kevin Nash, who returns. Then they hit the What's Up on Jeff Jarrett. Nash comes out, hits the Jackknife Powerbomb on Jeff Jarrett. Then Kevin Nash gets the microphone, says Planet Jarrett is off axis, and that Nash is going to challenge Jeff Jarrett for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship at Bound for Glory. Brother Devon gets a mic, and he says, next week, let's have Team 3D versus AMW, and that's what we're going to get the following week. So this was just a great episode from top to bottom. Really build on the talents, build on the groups, just build on the maneuvers, and it was just executed perfectly in their debut edition on Spike TV, and then that would set up 2 matches for the following week, which would be Team 3D against AMW and 3 Live Crew versus Team Canada. So that was my review on TNA Impact's October 1st, 2005 episode, the debut on Spike TV. I compared and contrast with WWE. I talked about my wrestling at the time, me getting into the start of like the early days of me watching professional wrestling. Like obviously I knew about the Attitude Era, but like I said, my parents kind of kept me away from that. But I started getting into it in 2002 and onward, and I started watching TNA at a top ed right here. So it was just a great time for wrestling. Like I said, 13-year-old Mike Larkin ate it up. This is coming off of Unbreakable, which was Styles, Daniels, and Samoa Joe main eventing, and that incredible matchup. So this was a good time for TNA wrestling. There's been so many changes. Everybody, the main key players leaving. Dixie Carter, Billy Corgan, Ed Nordholm. Don Callison's got the more now. TNA's coming on to Bound for Glory now. Some of the matchups that they announced for the Melrose Ballroom show is, the main event's Austin Aries and Johnny Impact for the Impact World Heavyweight Championship. We have Tessa Blanchard versus Taya Valkyrie for the Knockouts Championship. We got Conan and LAX against the OGs and King. And I believe it's the Concrete Jungle match. I know it's going to be a hell of a brawl. We have... What other matches do we have on the card? I'm totally blanking on this right now. Oh, we have OVE versus Brian Cage, Pentagon Jr., and Phoenix. And I believe that's the card so far. Those are 4 matches. I'm going to actually do a double take because, to be honest with you, I'm kind of drawing a blank on here. And I'm going to be talking about this with the with my boys on the whole Impact Bodega. So I just want to make sure those are all the matchups, because I remember I did check out this past week's Impact, and it was decent. I liked Taya Valkyrie paying homage to the late, great Paraguayo Jr. and the unfortunate death of Paraguayo Jr. Rest in peace. God rest his soul. The Concrete Jungle Death match, LAX against the OGs, Austin Aries, Johnny Impact, OVE. Okay, the one match I missed. They also announced the grudge match between Eddie Edwards and Moose. So 5 matches. That's the only one that I missed. So I'll be talking about that with the Impact Bodega coming up very soon on the prediction side of things. There's going to be more on the Steve and Mike Show podcast network, interviews and pop culture shows and a lot more. What else can I say? You can check me on the HeelCast. I'll be back on there very soon. I'm just going to have fun doing the podcasting thing up, man. So I want to do this special audio for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it, given my analysis, myself watching pro wrestling at the time, comparing and contrasting the companies, and just an overall exciting time period for professional wrestling. That was the year 2005. So on that note, I bid you adieu. Everyone have a great night. God bless, my friends. Be well. And for those who are going to be checking out Bound for Glory, that is on October 14th. Enjoy it. Be well. And God bless, my friends. Everyone have a great night. This has been Mike Larkin, and I'll talk to you soon.